Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video what I'm going to try to do is explain to you how to put a title block around millimeter drawings and making them work in both scenarios. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a drawing that you see here on the screen, and it is in millimeters. And then we're going to put a millimeter title block around it and put some dual dimensions on it. And then we're going to also take a look at it, converting it over to inches and putting a title block around it. So I wanted to show the difference between the two. One of the hardest things to try to do in most of my videos that I've created millimeter drawings and I put a title block around it, I was more or less showing you the concept of how to do it. In this video, I'll show you exactly what you should be doing as opposed to trying to give you the concept. So if you do have a drawing created in millimeters and you wanted to put a millimeter title block around it, I will explain that process, as well as the process of taking a millimeter drawing and making it into inches, and then let's go ahead and put a regular title block around it. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump over to AutoCAD and get started on this. Okay, so some of the normal stuff I like to do is go ahead and turn off the grid here. And then I'll go ahead and check what O snaps I have running. And these are the typical ones I'll have on. You don't see, you see that I don't have any ortho, any of the polar tracking, or any of the other stuff turned on. I do have my dynamic input turned on, and remember that if you want to turn that on, you have to go to the 3 bars here along the side, and then you're going to go and make sure that those are checked next to dynamic input. All right. So let's go ahead and start with a circle that has a radius of 30, and then we're going to have a circle that has a radius of 20 on the inside of it. So I'll choose circle, center, radius, click a point here, then I'll type out the 30. I'm just going to scroll out a little bit with my mouse wheel, go back to the circle, center, radius command. I'm going to touch this circle, click here, and then I'm going to give it a radius of 20. All right, so that's 2 of the circles that I have. As you can see from the drawing, I have 3 of these circles, right? So I have a circle here, and it's going to be one somewhere here and one somewhere here. All right, let's go ahead and make a copy of this circle. So let's just kind of move this up. I'm going to select here, and then I'll go ahead and use the grips to copy this. So I'm just going to select this center, spacebar 1 time, and then I'm going to select copy. All right, now my dynamic input is on, so remember that if this is turned on, that gives you that benefit of it typing in the @ symbol for you. So I need to go down in this direction. So I'm going to type in the X coordinate first, which I'm headed to the right. So I'm going to type in 70, comma, and then I need to tell it how far I'm going down. In this case, it's a -98. Once you hit enter, you should have that placement. I'll go ahead and hit escape here, and I'm just escaping twice to clear that one. I'll select this circle. Select the center grip, select the word copy, and I'm using a stretch copy. Now, if you stretch copy from the center of it, you don't have to switch over to move or anything of that nature. So if you stretch something, well, mainly a circle from the center, you're just going to do it. It's going to do nothing but move it. All right, so I have it stretched. I already selected the copy. Now I need to give it the distance. So from here, I need to go back this direction, 20. So that's a -20. Comma, and I need to tell it how far to go down. In this case, it's going to be, a -86. Go ahead and hit enter. That should be the placement of it. Let's go ahead and hit escape. Now, I will turn my ortho on for this next step. So just go to ortho, mirror. I'll go ahead and select my circles. I'll go ahead and hit the enter button. I'll go to the center here. As long as I come straight down, I should be okay. And of course, I don't want to delete the source. I need both of them. These 2 inside circles, I'm just going to select these 2. I'll do a right click and go to the quick properties. Should bring open my quick properties menu. I'll change the radius here to 15. Go ahead and hit escape twice just to clear those. And then select your 2 big outer circles. Do a right click, quick properties. We're going to set that radius equal to 25. All right, and then what we need to do is go ahead and add our last fillets on here, right? So fillet, radius, 80, enter, and then I'll go ahead and select multiple since I have more than one. And now I'm just going to select all around these two objects here and work my way around until I get all of my fillets put on my object. Okay, and we have two more to go. And then finally this one. Alright, so now I escape out of the command and I accidentally hit F1. Let's go ahead and clear that. Alright, so now I have this kind of created, and this is a millimeter drawing, so make sure you understand that. So all of this was drawing in millimeters. What I need to do next is go ahead and just create a simple A4 size title block. Now that's an A size if we're talking in isometric units. So I'm just going to draw an A4. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the dimensions for you of what an A4 looks like. So here I just did a quick Google search and I found out what's the dimensions in millimeters for an A4 size. So remember that this is going to be my A size if you're dealing with imperial units or regular United States units. So this is an A size drawing, but in ISO it's called an A4. You can see that that rectangle is 210 by 297. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a rectangle over here that's 297 by 210. So I'll go to rectangle, click here. Let's go back to the rectangle. There we go. Click here, 297, comma, 210. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset this to the inside. Now, if you're talking about millimeters and we're thinking in inches and things of that nature, I'm just going to go ahead and jump and pull up my calculator here. And if I wanted to offset that, and typically what I do in my regular imperial units drawing is I offset that by 1/4 of an inch. So I want to do the exact same thing here, but I'm just going to use the calculator to figure that out. So if I want to offset something 0.25, remember this is something that's super important to you. The conversion from 1 inch to millimeters is 25.4, meaning that I have to multiply this number by 25.4 to give me the decimal equivalent to how far that offset is. So once it gives me that, it tells me that 6.35 is the offset that I need to get to achieve that same offset that I would do in inches. So let's choose inches. Let's choose offset. Type in 6.35. Let's go ahead and select this border here and just click to the inside. All right, what I usually like to do next is go ahead and make this into a title block, and that's just going to give me the benefits of knowing what the scale factor is. So I'm just going to select both of these, and instead of going up here and finding where the block make is, I'm just going to type in BM, and that stands for block make, or make a block. Once I hit enter, it's going to pop open the dialog box. Let's just give it a simple name. I'll call it TB in this case. Pick the base point. It's almost and always nice to put your lower left corner at 0, 0. So therefore I'm going to declare this is my lower left corner, because I always want this to be where my 0, 0 is going to be. So I select that. It already has the two objects selected, so go ahead and hit enter or hit OK. And now this thing should automatically be turned into a title block. To move this to 0, 0, I can do it inside of the properties window, but I'm going to show you also that you can do it with the move command. This is one of those things that where a lot of people will try to move something and nothing happens. So if I want to move my title block here, and I want to place this corner here, so once I select it and I want it to go to 0, 0, when you type in 0, 0 and you hit enter and nothing happens, mainly because if you keep down looking at your command line here, you see that it says add 0, 0. So remember, we have to turn our dynamic input off first. So I'll turn that off first, and then I'll go to the move command again, select my title block, enter, and then I'll select this lower corner. And now when I type in 0, 0 and hit enter, it should move. Now remember to always put this back on, just so you know it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move our image up into our title block. So let's kind of zoom out of here. Put a window around this, and just kind of move it. I'll turn the ortho off just so I can move it freely. So you see that now it does not quite fit inside of my title block, right? So let's go ahead and select the title block. I'm going to go to the properties window, and I just typed in PR, and mine is on auto hide. And then I'm going to adjust the scale of this. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a 2 and I'm just changing the X and the Y to 2, right? So that fits nicely inside of my title block. Let's go ahead and move this image just a little bit over. All right, so that's enough room that I'm going to need to create this, right? Just to make my life a little bit easy, I'm going to use the annotation option. You can use the standard method as well, but in this case, I'm just going to use annotation. So now you see that I scaled this thing up to 2 times, right? So therefore, my scale factor is 1 to 2. When I go and I put my center marks on here, and I'm just going to put those on here just to show you that anytime I'm dealing with a metric drawing, I use center EXE to set the extensions, and I usually use a number either 3 or 5. It's kind of your preference on that. I just use 3 on that one, and I'm just going to go and place the center marks on this line, well, on my shape. So I'll go and place all of these center marks. That's kind of wrapping around through here. All right, I can put the other ones on there, but for what I need to show you, they're kind of not going to be relevant here. So on this shape now, I have this created. And the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and put dimensions on it. Here's one of the trickiest things ever that you got to realize when you're dealing with a metric drawing and dealing with things in metric, right? So I'm just going to go back to the dimension style, or I'm just going to hit D, or I'm just going to hit this little flag here since I just so happen to be on this tab. I'm going to use the annotative one, right? Because I already set the annotation option here at the bottom. I'm going to go to modify. And this is where things are going to get a little tricky at, right? So when this opens up, and I'm going to start here at the lines and symbols, what I like to do is I like to adjust all of my spacing to the correct terms. Now, AutoCAD out of the box, I'm using the English version. So it's assuming that all of these numbers are inches. So I have to convert those numbers. So I'll go ahead and bring back up my calculator here. Let's go ahead and clear this out. So the 0.38 has to be multiplied times 25.4. Therefore, it's giving me a number of roughly 9.6, or you can go 9.7. So this value here is now 9.7, right? Likewise, if I come here to the next number, which is 0.18, let's bring open my calculator again. 0.18 times, I did a division on that, 25.4. You can see that that number is somewhere around 4.6. So let's go ahead and make this 4.6. And I can keep going right around this whole object this way, right? So there's my 0.0625, and I think you're starting to see what I need to do on all of this. So 0.0625 times 25.4. That gives me roughly 1.6. So let's just call it 1.6. Now, the hardest thing ever is to kind of not pay attention to what's happening here, but it'll all start fixing itself here in a second. So there's back to my 1.8, and if I'm not mistaken, my 1.8 was sitting here. So that's 4.6. I always like to get rid of my center marks. I don't need them since I put the other ones on. You have this jog number and you have a break dimension. I'm not going to worry about these two, but you can go ahead and multiply them with the calculator and adjust those if you need to. Let's go ahead and take a look at the text. Here's another big number again, right? So in this one, I'm going to make my text, just to keep it consistent on both of them, I'm going to make it 1/8 of an inch. So let's pull open the calculator again. 0.125 times 25.4. And you can see that that number is now 3.1, right? So let's go ahead and adjust this number to 3.1. And now you see my dimensions and everything's are starting to adjust back to the way they were. This offset point from this line here was 0.19. I'm sorry, 0.09. And let's see in my history, I don't have that one yet. So 0.09 times 25.4. And that's roughly 2.3, let's call it. All right. And let's see. And then we go to the fit tab. Remember, underneath this tab, we don't have to do anything because we're using the annotation scale. So therefore, I'm not going to have to adjust any numbers here. Let's go ahead and take a look at my primary units. And then in here, what we're looking for is just how we want this to be dimensioned. So I'm just going to go ahead and suppress the trailing zeros in this case, right? So in this one, I'm just going to have all nice and clean millimeter numbers. Let's go ahead and hit OK. and go ahead and hit close. So now when I go ahead and put a dimension on here, and I'll just go ahead and do the radial dimensions. So I'll select this line here, and I'm just going to hit the enter button just to keep kind of putting some of these on. And you can see that these dimensions are what they should be. Let's go ahead and put a linear dimension on here, and I just use DLI just to be for a shortcut, right? Okay, so these are a few of the dimensions that I have on here. Kind of zoom into that one. And now, if I wanted to make these dual dimensions, so meaning that I wanted them to show the inches, and I'm doing this one on this one, I'm going to go back to the dimension style here. I'm going to click onto the Modify tab, and once again I'm changing the annotative one. Once my other dialog box come open, so remember that these are millimeters and I need it to show inches. So I'm going to click on the alternate units. I'm going to select the drop down here to tell it to display it. I'm going to bring it below it, and you can see that these numbers are going to be incredibly big, mainly because it's multiplying it by this scale factor of 25.4. So if you are going to convert this over going the other way, I have to do the reciprocal of that number, which is 1 divided by 25.4. So at this number is the number that I need to put in here to accurately show my millimeter dimensions to inches. So I'm going to take this number here, I'm going to do a copy on it, and then I'm going to place it here and hit paste. Alright, so now when I come out and hit OK, and then close this, you're going to see that I should get dual dimensions here, and all of those dual dimensions are reading what it would be in inches, right? So this is easy enough to convert something from, if I'm using millimeter units and I'm using it at a millimeter title block. The important thing to remember there is that you want to keep those same units, and that I got to convert those numbers inside of my dimension scale. But what if I had this and I said, hey, I want to make this millimeter drawing in the inches, and I also want to show the dual dimensions. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and select just the components on the inside of here. Right? I don't need any other dimensions. I don't need any of the other stuff. I just want the circles, and you can give me the center marks. Right? So I don't have any other dimensions highlighted. I just have the object and the center marks. I'm just going to use a Control-C, taking a copy of it. I'll click on the plus here. This is just going to open up a new drawing. And then I'll paste it here. So I'm just going to do a Control-V. And then go ahead and place it, right? I'll double click my middle mouse wheel, and now I have my shape. Let's go ahead and turn the grid off. And now I'm going to use an A-size title block, right? So just regular inches A-size title block, and that measures out at a 11 by 8.5. So let's go ahead and create a rectangle. Click here, create a rectangle that is 11, 8.5. I'm going to zoom into this. I'm going to do an offset of 0.25 just to be consistent with my other one. And I'm just going to offset that to the inside. Now, the other problem here is that I want this to read and to be in inches, right? So I need to scale this down in order for it to be inches. So I'm going to use the scale command. I'm going to highlight all of my drawing here. Enter. I'm going to click a base point somewhere near my object here. And then what I need to do is give it a scale factor. So remember I told you the 1 divided by 25.4, right? So I want to just type that into AutoCAD and type in 1 divided by 25.4 and say go ahead and scale that for me. And once I hit enter, AutoCAD should say, hey, I don't know how to do that. It's kind of one of the weirdest things ever is that it cannot do anything with decimals in it. So the way I get around that is I'll usually type in the apostrophe CAL command, enter, and then I'll type in 1 divided by 25.4, hit enter, and then it can figure that expression out for me, right? Let me go ahead and zoom into here, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of these center marks because we're going to have to create some more. All right, so now we have our shape down to the right size. I'm going to go ahead and move this object, sorry, my title block, to 0, 0. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to go to move. And I know I haven't made this into a block yet, but I'll do that here in a second. I'm going to move these objects. Enter, select this base point. Turn off my dynamic input. Type in 0, 0. Enter. Turn on my dynamic input. And then I'm just going to zoom the extents, right? So I'm just going to double click my middle mouse wheel. And then I'm going to bring this shape over, or in this case, down to where my title block is. Alright, like I did before, I'm going to go ahead and select these two rectangles. Type in BM. Enter. Wait for a second. Go ahead and name it TB like I did the last one. Select the base point. In this case, I don't have to pick it because it already has it at 0, 0, 0. So that's fine in my opinion. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And now this is a title block. Let's go ahead and take a look at the properties. And let's go ahead and make this fit. So I'm going to change the scale X and scale Y to for both of those two numbers. Now you see it's up on the inside of this one. Let's go ahead and move this to here. I'll go ahead and check my center EXE, but I know in this drawing it should be still at 0.12, which is fine for this one. So now when I go ahead and put the center marks on this one, they should be adjusted to a normal size. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take a look at putting dual dimensions on this one. So I'm going to go to my dimensioning style, which is here. Wait for it to open up here. And I forgot to do one thing, but I can do that later here in a second. I'm going to rechange this annotation style because we did make this at a scale factor of 2. And I'm just going to double click here. Go to modify. Now the good things about using this version is that everything is already set to inches, so I don't have to adjust any of this stuff except for the text height. If you remember the other one, I made 0.125, so I'm just going to make that match the 0.125 here. I don't have to worry about the fit. Underneath here, remember that we're measuring in inches, so depending on how many units you want to see, I'm just going to put 2 decimal places. I'll show it here. Underneath the alternate units here, I'm going to tell it to display it. And now, this is the other great thing about it, is that it knows that you're converting inches for millimeters. So there's that magical number, 25.4. Let's go ahead and suppress the trailing zeros and hit OK. Then I'll go to close. Let me go ahead and adjust my annotative scale here, since I did adjust that. So now that's sitting at 2. And then let's go ahead and put some dimensions on. So I'll put my radial dimensions on. And just like you've seen me do before, and I did leave them setting to the sideways, and I can go and adjust that really quick. Let's go and go back to my dimension style, modify, alternate units, and then we're going to tell it to go below it. And that's another thing I do like, is that it will adjust these automatically, even though I have them on the screen already created. So I do like the fact that it does update them. All right. And let's go ahead and put one linear dimension on here just to show you that everything is working the same. Okay. So on this drawing, you can see that I do have the inches over the millimeters. And then the first one I gave to you, I have the millimeters created over the inches. And the difference is that this is all metric now. So this is a metric title block with metric dimensions on it. Everything is metric. And in this drawing, this is all inches. So this is kind of normally how you would do your drawings. You would either convert your drawing to all millimeters, or you would be doing it in all inches to get the appropriate sizes, right? So hopefully you enjoyed watching this. I know this was kind of a long video, but I wanted to explain this concept a little bit more, because I know if you're watching through a lot of my videos, and it may be a little bit confusing when I have a millimeter drawing and I just pop in an inches title block, and then I adjust the scale and do things of that nature. So this one I wanted to kind of clarify a little bit of what I'm actually doing. This is the actual concept of what you should be doing. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. And if you got any value out of it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, or leave me a comment. Or if you know I probably messed this up in your opinion, please leave me a comment on that as well. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.